Hi, I'm Justin, and happy Tolkien Reading Day 2026. Tolkien Reading Day is celebrated around the world every March 25th by fans of J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of The Lord of the Rings, of course. It's a day to look back on his works, think of them, and appreciate the joy he's brought to so many fans across the world through either The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, or any one of his non-Lord of the Rings related stories. March 25th is an important day in Lord of the Rings. It is the day that the One Ring was destroyed and Sauron was destroyed as well. Fans celebrate all around the world by finding a particular passage of the Lord of the Rings or any writing by J.R.R. Tolkien and reading it, and I would like to share a reading with you. And this year's theme is Unlikely Heroes, and this actually took me a pretty long time to decide. I'm recording this pretty much towards the end of Tolkien Reading Day because I couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to share, but I finally decided upon a passage from the Two Towers where the Ents decide that they are not going to take the destruction of their forest anymore. They are going to go and march on Isengard. If you're not familiar with the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, Ents are basically trees that can walk and talk and have feelings and emotions. They are more or less nature personified. Tolkien was a massive environmentalist before environmentalism was even really a big thing. He hated the fact that the area around Birmingham where he grew up was largely destroyed during the industrialization in the late 19th century. So I've chosen the passage from the Two Towers where the Ents decide to go and march to war, and I hope you enjoy that as well. At nightfall, he brought them to his Ent house, nothing more than a mossy stone set upon turves under a green bank. Rowan trees grew in a circle about it, and there was water, as in all Ent houses, a spring bubbling out from the bank. They talked for a while as darkness fell on the forest. Not far away, the voices of the Entmoot could be heard still going on, but now they seemed deeper and less leisurely, and every now and again one great voice would rise in a high and quickening music, while all the others died away. But beside them, Bregalad spoke gently in their own tongue, almost whispering, and they learned that he belonged to Skinbark's people, and the country where they had lived had been ravaged. That seemed to the hobbits quite enough to explain his hastiness, at least in the matter of orcs. "There were rowan trees in my home," said Bregalad, softly and sadly. "Rowan trees that took root when I was an Enting. Many, many years ago, in the quiet of the world. The oldest were planted by the Ents to try and please the Entwives. But they looked at them and smiled and said that they knew where whiter blossom and richer fruit were growing. Yet there are no trees of all that race, the people of the rose, that are so beautiful to me. And these trees grew and grew, till the shadow of each was like a green hall, and their red berries in the autumn were a burden, and a beauty and a wonder. Birds used to flock there. I like birds, even when they chatter, and the rowan has enough and to spare. But the birds became unfriendly and greedy, and tore at the trees, and threw the fruit down, and did not eat it. Then orcs came with axes and cut down my trees. I came and called them by their long names, but they did not quiver. They did not hear or answer. They lay dead. O Orofarne, Lassemista, Carne Mirie. O rowan fair, upon your hair, how white the blossom lay. O rowan mine, I saw you shine upon a summer's day. Your rind so bright, your leaves so light, your voice so cool and soft. Upon your head, how golden red, the crown you bore aloft. O rowan dead, upon your head, your hair is dry and grey. Your crown is spilled, your voice is stilled, for ever and a day. O Orofarne, Lassemista, Carne Mirie. The hobbits fell asleep to the sound of the soft singing of Bregalad, that seemed to lament, in many tongues, the falls of the trees that he had loved. The next day they spent also in his company, but they did not go far from his house. Most of the time they sat silent under the shelter of the bank, for the wind was colder and the clouds closer and grayer. There was little sunshine, and in the distance the voices of the Ents at the moot still rose and fell, sometimes loud and strong, sometimes low and sad, sometimes quickening, sometimes slow and solemn as a dirge. A second night came, and still the Ents held conclave under hurrying clouds and fitful stars. The third day broke, bleak and windy. At sunrise, the Ents' voices rose to a great clamor, and then died down again. As the morning wore on, the wind fell, and the air grew heavy with expectancy. The hobbits could see that Bregalad was now listening intently, although to them, down in the dell of his Ent house, the sound of the moot was faint. The afternoon came, and the sun, going down west towards the mountains, sent out long yellow beams between the cracks and fissures of the clouds. Suddenly, they were aware that everything was very quiet. The whole forest stood in listening silence. Of course, the Ent voices had stopped. What did that mean? Bregalad was standing up erect and tense, looking back northwards towards Durndingle. Then, with a crash, came a great, ringing shout. Ra-hoom-ra! The trees quivered and bent as if a gust had struck them. There was another pause, and then a marching music began like solemn drums, and above the rolling beats and booms were welled voices, singing high and strong. We come with roll of drum. Da-runda, runda, runda, rum. The Ents were coming ever nearer and louder, rose their song. We come with horn and drum. Da-runda, runda, runda, rum. Bregalad picked up the hobbits and strode from his house. Before long, they saw the marching line approaching. The Ents were swinging along with great strides down the slope towards them. Treebeard was at their head. Some 50 followers were behind him, 2 abreast, keeping step with their feet and beating time with their hands upon their flanks. As they drew near, the flash and flicker of their eyes could be seen. Hum, hum, here we come with a boom. Here we come at last, called Treebeard, when he caught sight of Bregalad and the hobbits. Come, join the moot. We are off. We are off to Isengard. To Isengard, the Ents cried in many voices. To Isengard. To Isengard, though Isengard be ringed and barred with doors of stone, though Isengard be strong and hard, as cold as stone and bare and bone. We go to war, to hew the stone and break the door, For bowl and bow are burning now, the furnace roars, we go to war. To land of gloom with tramp of doom, we roll of drum, we come, we come. To Isengard with doom we come, with doom we come, with doom we come. So they sang as they marched southwards. Bregalad, his eyes shining, swung into the line behind Treebeard. The old Ent now took the hobbits back and set them on his shoulders again, and so they rode proudly at the head of the singing company with beating hearts and heads held high. Though they had expected something to happen eventually, they were amazed at the change that had come over the Ents. It seemed now as sudden as the bursting of a flood that had long been held back by a dike. The Ents made up their minds rather quickly after all, didn't they? Pippin ventured to say after some time, when for a moment the singing paused, and only the beating of hands and feet was heard. Quickly, said Treebeard. Yes, indeed, quicker than I expected. Indeed, I have not seen them roused like this for many an age. We Ents do not like being roused, and we never are roused unless it is clear to us that our trees and our lives are in great danger. That has not happened in this forest since the wars of Sauron and the Men of the Sea. It is the orc work, the wanton hewing Grarum, without even the bad excuse of feeding the fires, that has so angered us, and the treachery of a neighbor who should have helped us. Wizards ought to know better. They do know better. There is no curse in Elvish, Entish, or the tongues of men bad enough for such treachery. Down with you, Saruman. Would you really break the doors of Isengard? Asked Merry. Well, we could, you know. You do not know, perhaps, how strong we are. Maybe you have heard of trolls. They are mighty strong, but trolls are only counterfeits, made by the enemy in the great darkness, in mockery of Ents, as orcs were of elves. We are stronger than trolls. We are made of the bones of the earth. We can split stone like the roots of trees, only quicker, far quicker, if our minds are roused. If we are not hewn down or destroyed by fire or blast of sorcery, we could split Isengard into splinters and crack its walls into rubble. But Saruman will try to stop you, won't he? Yes, that is so. I have not forgotten it. Indeed, I have thought long about it. But you see, many of the Ents are younger than I, by many lives of trees. They are all roused now, and their mind is all on one thing, breaking Isengard. But they will start thinking again before long. They will cool down a little when we take our evening drink. What a thirst we shall have. But let them march now and sing. We have a long way to go, and there is time ahead for thought. It is something to have started. Treebeard marched on, singing with the others for a while, but after a time his voice died to a murmur and fell silent again. Pippin could see that his old brow was wrinkled and nodded. At last he looked up, and Pippin could see a sad look in his eyes. Sad, but not unhappy. There was a light in them, as if the green flame had sunk deeper into the dark wells of his thought. Of course, it is likely enough, my friends, he said slowly. Likely enough that we are going to our doom. The last march of the Ents. But if we stayed at home and did nothing, doom would find us anyway, sooner or later. That thought has long been growing in our hearts, and that is why we are marching now. It was not a hasty resolve. Now at least the last march of the Ents may be worth a song, aye. He sighed. We may help the other peoples before we pass away. Still, I should have liked to see the songs come true about the Entwives. I should dearly have liked to see Fimbrethil again. But there, my friends, songs like trees bear fruit only in their own time and their own way. Sometimes they are withered untimely. The Ents went striding on at a great pace. They had descended into a long fold of the land that fell away southward. Now they began to climb up and up onto the high western ridge. The woods fell away, and they came to scattered groups of birch, and then to bare slopes where only a few gaunt pine trees grew. The sun sank behind the dark hillback in front. Grey dusk fell. Pippin looked behind. The number of the Ents had grown, or what was happening? Where the dim bare slopes that they had crossed should lie, he thought he saw groves of trees, but they were moving. Could it be that the trees of Fangorn were awake, and the forest was rising, marching over the hills to war? He rubbed his eyes, wondering if sleep and shadow had deceived him. But the grey shapes moved steadily onward. There was a noise like wind in many branches. The Ents were drawing near the crest of the ridge now, and all song had ceased. Night fell, and there was silence. Nothing was to be heard save a faint quiver of the earth beneath the feet of the Ents, and a rustle, the shade of a whisper, as of many drifting leaves. At last they stood upon the summit, and looked down into a dark pit. The great cleft at the end of the mountains, Nan Kurunir, the valley of Saruman. Night lies over Isengard, said Treebeard. Such a cool way to set up the attack on Isengard that, when you're reading the book, you're expecting it to come like the next chapter or maybe 2 chapters from now. But then it cuts away from the action and you don't actually find out what happens until Merry and Pippin tell the story in flashback all the way towards the end of Book 3 in the Two Towers. So it's a lovely way to set the scene and really build the tension, which is something Tolkien does like a professional. It has really been such an amazing Tolkien Reading Day in 2026. We got word from Peter Jackson that there are 2 movies being worked on. One, of course, we knew about. That was The Hunt for Gollum. That's supposed to come out towards the end of 2027. But we found out there's another movie being worked on as well. This one being worked on by Stephen Colbert, of all people. The Tolkien superfan who's had his late night show for so many years. Out of all the celebrities who are fans of Tolkien, I think he's the one who understands him probably the most. So I really trust him, and I like the idea looking at the parts of The Fellowship of the Ring that were cut out from the Peter Jackson films that came out in 2001. So looking at Three's Company, The Old Forest, Fog on the Barrow Downs, which features some of the greatest writing that appears in Lord of the Rings. So it's going to be really, really fun. I'm looking forward to it. But let me wrap up by saying, wherever you are in the world, whether this is your first year reading J.R.R. Tolkien, and you're just discovering that Tolkien Reading Day is a thing, welcome aboard. This is, in my opinion, the greatest story that's ever been told. And if you're a fan who's been, reading and watching the films for 25 years like I have, or much longer like many others before me have as well, I want to wish you a very, very happy Tolkien Reading Day. And, check this space for more. Hopefully we'll get back to the Lord of the Rings online streams pretty soon. But until the next time, everyone, forth, fear no darkness. Have a good one.